The delegates were in a cooperative mood today, all recognising the benefits that a combined voice would bring. Mr Peter Evans, the President of the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce, says this is a significant regional initiative which will strengthen the business sector.
Well, certain resolutions were passed. The idea behind those is to give a stronger regional voice to the chamber movement, to the benefit of business in this region.
Were there some concerns expressed about what's happening in the region, for example, with the regional airport?
There are concerns about that. There is a major concern in providing the government providing the right environment for tourism to get access to this area. Naturally, we're delighted with the new National Highway Strategy, but very concerned about the airport report because we're just not satisfied that the tourists who should be coming to this area will be able to get access by air to the Hunter region.
The youth squad qualified for the Cup final with a 3-0 win over Sydney, Croatia early last month. In that game it was 0 all at full time, but with a mighty effort in the extra time period, the local boys swept home 3-0. But that was a month ago, and since then the youth squad has suffered some surprise defeats and has slumped badly. Coach Joe Lanzoni, however, is confident the side can overcome the recent slump and post a win in tomorrow's match at Adamstown Oval.
I think that we can get up and win. I think Marconi's style of play suits our style of play, and basically the reason for our slump has been that we've had 12 players for the season, and players lose form, injuries happen, suspensions, and you should be able to have a few more players to be able to slot players as the form warranted, but unfortunately we haven't had that luxury.
But do you think regardless of this you can get up and win tomorrow?
I think that we can get up and win. There is a lot at stake. The boys know that they carry Newcastle colours on their backs tomorrow, and I think they'll get up and do the job for them.
The boy's mother, 38-year-old Diane Machin, was brutally strangled with a piece of wire as she was talking to a friend on the telephone in the dining room of her home in Heddon Road, Broadmeadow. The friend, disturbed at what she heard on the phone, called another friend who lived near the dead woman's house. She raced to investigate and alerted police and ambulances. Although ambulancemen were able to revive the woman, she died in hospital a short time later. The detective heading the investigation, Inspector Kevin Parsons.
He then attacked her and placed the length of wire around the throat. She's gone into the bedroom from the dining room. The offender has also taken a knife from a kitchen drawer. He has strangled her until she was unconscious in the bedroom. He's then attacked the pet dog with the knife and inflicted fatal wounds to the dog, which made its way out of the house and to the back door of the home where the dog was found bleeding there.
Police believe the woman's son, Scott, who was out at the shops when the killing took place, may have only narrowly escaped becoming the murderer's second victim. Scott arrived home at the same time as the neighbour who had come to investigate. He saw the murderer's knife on the footpath outside the house. But when police arrived only minutes later, the knife was gone. Police believe the killer was lurking around the house
area for quite some time after the murder.
Yes, he could have been there for 20 minutes.
An intensive search this morning uncovered a knife police believe was used in the attack, but as yet police have no definite lead on the killer's identity.
Helena has returned from the New York
by the Department of Veterans Affairs regarding private limb makers has been paid.
We need both government limb centres and private limb makers In fact, our association fought very hard. It's a paradox, really, to get this limb centre, the government limb centre, that we have in Newcastle now.
What would it mean to you to have to go back to crutches and a wheelchair?
Well, I think I would take the quick way out, without any doubt. There would certainly be an increase in the number of people suiciding in desperation, as there have been in the past.
If the proposal goes through, no further licence will be issued for the limbs, and a quota system will be introduced where they will not be able to make any more limbs than they made in the previous year. Amputee status is a move to force them to return to the government-controlled repatriation artificial limb and appliance centre. Private limb maker Ron Rice agrees.
Well, the possibility is that I'd be out of business and I would have to go and work for the government. I think that's their idea anyway, to force us out of business and to make me go and work in the hospital system.
And you don't relish that?
Practically honest. At the moment he's at school and he leads a very active life. He plays golf and does sports. But next year he is going to enter this is one of two pairs of legs made by the government limb centres, and they were made about when Mark was about 1 and 2 years old respectively, and they were not very well made, as you can see. But obviously they weren't quite sure how to align them. They've been cut and remade many times, and Mark never walked in these legs. The others, this one is when I went to a private limb maker, and the difference is quite obvious. This leg to
I'd be stuck in poor wall, watching Torres, probably deteriorating generally.
How would you cope with that?
Well, I doubt whether I'd be able to cope. I'd become a burden on the family, and I'd be tempted to do similar to what Chris has mentioned already. It's the sort of effect that this sort of thing has on people.
A spokesman for the Citizens Group, former candidate for East Ward, Mr John Hardigan, says the only way to make sure the Newcastle City Council gets back to normal is to hold public meetings and force the hand of the Minister for Local Government.
Well, we intend calling a public meeting, and from the statements and information we can find out from the media and the different people around, that we intend to pack a hall with the residents of Newcastle to show their protest to the Minister and make him call an election within 21 days or a month to put these aldermen back where they should be, representing the people of Newcastle.
Do you think you'll be successful?
Well, it's be successful. Well, I think we'll have a problem, but the people in Newcastle have stuck together before, and I think if they let the elected ministers of Newcastle know their attitude, well, they're going to have to get off their behinds, as I'd say, and make sure that these elections take place immediately.
It might look green and healthy, but this wheat crop, like most in the Upper Hunter and Merriwar district, is already making it clear that grain growers' incomes will be well down this year.
This year's wheat crop's a totally different situation to last year's. Last year we had a big area of good-looking crops. This year we've got a small area of good-looking crops and a quite large area of average or below average yielding crops.
Why? What's going wrong?
Well, I think it's just the condition of the season. We missed the good sowing rains in the main sowing period of May, June, and most people were restricted to getting crops in the later part of the year, which is not good for good yield potential in the wheat.
What about the lack of rain since?
Well, that's certainly not helping the early sowing crops, which are just at a critical stage now. They're starting to flower, and that's a critical stage as far as the plant is for grain yield. So we're looking for good rain immediately for those crops, and well, for the later sown crops, it's doubtful whether rain now would really give them any great yield potential.
Hot, drying winds have opened up cracks in the earth, stripping away vital moisture at a time when the plants are showing signs of heat stress.
Rolled leaf like that is showing signs of stress.
It's rolled up to reduce the area.
Yeah, that's right. That should be nice, open and wide, to take full benefit of the sunlight, so when it's like that, the plant's not in a position to really do too much work.
Has anything good come out of the weather? At least has it kept some of the problems like rust at bay?
Yes, certainly stripe rust has been nowhere near as severe this year as what it was last year. We've only got a few isolated cases through the district, so disease problems have been at a lower level this year.
What about the rose-green aphid? There was some concern that might appear and cause a problem. Have you seen the instances of this?
We had some aphid activity earlier on in the year in oat crops, which has never been reported before. We had a little bit in wheat, but the problem has not been severe in the district at all.
Is it still necessary for farmers to keep an eye out for it then?
Certainly, we would like to know if the aphid is building up in crops, but we don't expect it to.
Heavy-handed approach naturally triggered emotions. That led to the rather embarrassed rating officers wanting the media out of the way as quickly as possible.
This will kill my mother. I hope you all realise it. My father died because of harassment over pigeons. My mother will die the same way.
We've been informed that the area is quarantined.
Well, we'd just like to know specifically what area is
quarantined.
Claiming powers under the Quarantine Act, police ordered us off the property, but then realised an adjoining property was not quarantined. The argument went on. Prepared press releases carried by Quarantine and Agriculture officers detailed the argument for the raid. A disease first identified at Newcastle on Tyne and known as Newcastle disease could effectively wipe out massive sections of our poultry industry. The disease is carried by pigeons.
An order to seize and destroy all the birds on this property has been issued. And
how many birds are there?
In the vicinity of about 500, possibly a bit more.
So what's going to happen? They're going to all be destroyed?
That is the instructions, yes.
And that is the only way to be sure that you're preventing the spread of this disease?
That is correct. That's the instructions we are working under.
You're certain there is the risk of the disease?
In the terms of the Act, there is a risk, and because of that risk, we're ordered to destroy the birds.
In the terms of the Act, does that mean that someone has, or you think someone has imported some strain of birds from overseas?
The Act states that any birds that are imported are regarded as being infected, and any birds that are in contact with imported or progeny of imported birds are regarded as being infected.
Seeking a court injunction to prevent his birds being destroyed, owner John Hanson vigorously denies the claims of the Department of Agriculture.
I have never imported a pigeon in my life into this country.
Why do you feel that they regard the pigeons as having come in contact?
They maintain now I bought a pigeon that is off imported progeny.
Did you?
Well, I thought it was all hogwash because as far as the law goes, you are not allowed to import pigeons. I have $100,000 worth of pigeons here. I wouldn't risk them for one pigeon.
According to the New South Wales Director of the Australian Federation of Construction Contractors,
big announcement
Brian Manton,
going ahead, big
still not
project,
working
big
towards
employment
further decline in turnover this year compared to last year.
employment
He said despite the capital works of $4.4 billion handed down in the state budget, an increase in large-scale projects is urgently needed to generate more work.
I think the state government is doing enough.
The difficulty is that the money that is spread out is spread too thinly. There are small projects all over the place, but if there can be more big projects under construction
then the contractors can get to grips with the employment issue, which is what the government wants.
What local works do you think need to be emphasised?
The local works that have to be stressed are the Maitland Bypass, the freeway west of Lake Macquarie, and the maintaining of the works on the Hunter Bridge at Hexham. A typical example of the problem that can happen is the Malden-Dumbarton Railway line, which after a big announcement, going ahead, big project, big employment prospects, is now gone into a 2-year longer construction phase. And one hopes that's not going to happen to local works here in Newcastle.
Up until the opening of the new ward yesterday, staff had to work from 4 rooms under extremely cramped conditions. Although nearly 15,000 outpatients went through registration last year alone, the hospital admits there were delays and the rooms were often filled to capacity and overflowing. The new ward, however, will be operating with 3 nursing and 1 administration staff under the eye of charge nurse Robert Sims. It boasts 3 resuscitations, 3 treatment and 3 observation beds, a minor treatment room, an ophthalmic examination room, dressing area, administration and the latest in equipment, with more on its way.
Well, we've badly needed it for a very long, long time, and it's only just this current year that the regional officers had the money, the funds to let us build it.
What will this mean to the people of Maitland?
Certainly a greater, better facility. We have much more room space compared to the space we had before. The nurses have more equipment here. It's up-to-date equipment. There's oxygen's in against the walls. All in all, it's a better facility.
Councils were only told a month ago that applications for a slice of the bicentennial money cake had to be in this week. It was a shock to say the least, but all groups have been working furiously to put their submissions together. At Lake Macquarie, 20 projects were given the nod, but only 5 have received priority. The $5.8 million multi-purpose entertainment centre is the one council is pushing for most. To be built at Steers Point Park, it will include a fitness centre, a 500-seat theatre, an arts and crafts centre, an art gallery and a restaurant. The projects receiving the council's second priority will together cost about the same as the first. They'll include relocating the Charlestown Oval to the old clay quarry at Hyber. According to the council, the old facilities will be upgraded to Hyber and the old site will become a botanical garden. Others include a new library at Toronto similar to the Charlestown Library, a youth centre in Edgeworth and a senior citizens community hall in Swansea. Maitland is also growing new capitalism with a plan to turn part of High Street into an historic mall dating back to the 19th century. Most business houses have expressed their willingness to change the facades of their shops to keep in line with the new look. This is likely to cost around $2 million at today's prices. Other projects to be submitted will be the restoration of the Town Hall and Brough House, which is being used as the city's art gallery. A $2 million
There is still accommodation available, which is unusual for this time of year. Promoters are hoping there'll be a late
rush.
rush.
There's also plans to build a cycleways at Nelson Bay and a mall in Magus Street at the Bay. Newcastle is also preparing its case for funding. Some of the applications include the beautification of the harbour foreshore, establishing a military museum with import fleet, as well as funds to write books about Newcastle's history. Details on submissions for Newcastle are scant, as most of them are still being completed. The recently elected Community Bicentennial Committee will decide on the projects that will most benefit the people of Newcastle at a meeting tonight.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. You know, when it comes to taxation, one must be very precise, particularly in making claims. A couple of months ago, as you'll recall, I told you the story about a farmer who'd been seriously ill and had employed his son in a part-time capacity to assist in running the farm, and many farming families do the same thing. I also mentioned at the time that his claim for the wages paid to his son had been knocked back by the tax department. He was absolutely appalled, and so was I. He asked for my advice, and I suggested that he should appeal, and appeal in no uncertain terms, and I said I'd keep you posted. Well, he did appeal within the prescribed 60-day period, and I'm delighted to say the appeal has been upheld. Now, the amount of money involved was not a large sum. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the principle involved in having the claim knocked back in the first place. Now, it's interesting to note that in getting the refund cheque from the taxation department, and I don't know if this is an illustration of their sense of humour or not, there was a little note because they now add interest when claims are won by the appealers. They now add interest to the cheque that's sent by way of refund, and at the bottom of the cheque was this note, because it only came with a few cents, less than $1, let me add. Please don't forget to include the cents received in your next income tax return. And I think that really, rounded it up very nicely. But I again emphasise and stress the point that if you make a claim and your claim is knocked back by the tax department and you feel that your claim is justified, don't be bluffed in any way, shape or form. You lodge your complaint, and I might add that somebody's complained on more than two, or appealed I should say, on more than 2 occasions, and they've eventually won. So I'll leave that thought with you and see you next Monday.